Morning and welcome to my balance challenge video. This video is aimed at people who can basically do most things okay. So maybe had some labyrinthitis in the past or some other balance issue that they've recovered reasonably from, and to most people they look as though they're back to normal. But they describe that they still generally feel imbalanced. They're having to work a bit harder to walk it normally. Um, they can go back to work and they're driving and essentially functioning okay. But if you ask them to return to, say, ball sports or go back to the gym or maybe go back to jogging, then there'd be some anxiety there and a feeling that they wouldn't be able to do it. Maybe can't kind of catch a ball or move quickly or turn quickly. So these exercises are aimed at challenging your balance system to bring yourself back up to scratch or as good as you can be, depending on what the problem is. Your balance relies on information coming in from various different systems. So you're integrating the information you get from your vision, from the balance system within your inner ear, from information from the joints in your neck to say where your head is, information from the joints and the muscles in your feet and your legs to say what's happening underneath and where the ground is. And you put all of that together into the balance system in your brain, and then your brain works out how to react and how your muscles respond to that. So it's a very complex system. I've put together various different exercises that will challenge different parts of that system. So some of you will find some of the exercises really easy and other exercises very, very difficult. So what I would suggest is you have a try at all of them to start with. Any that are easy, you don't need to practice. But any that you find difficult, you should work with. Work at a level that feels like a challenge, but you don't feel, but you still feel safe. If you're still experiencing some level of dizziness, then in order to improve that, you do need to push yourself a little bit. So if you're feeling some dizziness with the exercises, that will actually strengthen the system. If you're still feeling dizzy for half an hour or an hour afterwards, or even for the rest of the day after you've done these exercises, then you're working too hard, you're challenging yourself too much. You need to take a day's rest and maybe start back at something a lot easier. Perhaps I'll look at my beginner's balance class and try some of the harder exercises in that. So I'll show you the exercises now. Thought I had that just right. There we go. Okay, so I've said this is particularly for people with balance problems with vestibular disorders, but because your balance system uses information from your ankles, feet, knees and hips, these are also really good exercises if you're struggling to regain good balance after, say, an ankle injury or a hip injury or something. So it doesn't just have to be inner ears. So we'll start off with an exercise that I actually put together at the end of the other balance video, but we can progress it and make it gradually harder by adding in slightly different things. So you'd start off, make sure you've got enough space around you. So I'm struggling at home to find space to do these exercises well enough to show you. The garden's too noisy at the moment with builders somewhere else. Anyway, so make sure you've got space to put your arms out in all directions. Start with your feet together, bring your arms out in front of you, and make sure that you bring your head into this movement as well. So if you have a vestibular problem, there's a tendency to move your arms and not follow it because you don't want to move your head. Okay? So bring your head into it and follow wherever your arms are going. Don't be afraid to look at what you're doing. Okay, move slowly if you need to. If that feels really easy, then you need to make it harder. So try putting one foot in front of the other. I challenge anybody to do this one foot in the other, front of the other, without a little bit of a wobble. Okay, so I'm expecting you to wobble with this. Don't feel like if you wobble, you're useless. Okay, because I'm wobbling. If you can do that reasonably well, and you're not having to put your foot out to the side to catch yourself at all, then you can probably challenge it a bit more. A couple of different ways. You can either take yourself onto one leg and do it, and you'll see that becomes quite difficult for me. But if you're a basketball player or a netball player or somebody that does a lot of twisting and turning and jumping, you'll need to work at this level. Okay? Same on the other side. And it doesn't matter if you just have to tap your toe down on the other side to keep your balance. That means you're probably working at the right level for you because you're giving yourself a challenge. Try all different angles. Okay. The other way that you can challenge yourself with this is to put yourself on a soft surface instead of a firm surface. So if you haven't got hold of any equipment, so you haven't got, say, a balance cushion or a balance board or anything like that, just get yourself a really thick foam cushion and just see if this makes a difference. So do the same exercise on a cushion and see if it makes it a little bit more challenging. Okay, and it does have quite a big effect, as you can see. Okay. So don't be fearful. If you have to put your foot down to stop yourself, that's fine. That's your balance system kicking in, doing the job it's meant to do. So I'm going to try a slightly different one. Again, this is looking at really tuning into the information you're getting from your ankles and your leg, toning up your leg muscles. And you're going to start off, just keep your foot on the floor, but have it lightly on the floor and slide it as far forwards as you can and back. As you're doing this, trying to keep the leg that you've got your weight on, try and keep your knee in line over your foot so it's not rolling in and out. Okay, different directions, go as far back as you can. You see you've also got the balance reaction of the rest of your body counterbalancing you and moving in the opposite direction to your leg. That should happen automatically. That's not something you should be trying to bring in. You should just find that happens. Okay, swap around, same on the other side. Now if you can do that, and you can slide your foot along the floor in all different directions, then have a try at lifting your foot off the floor and seeing how far you can do it. And just tap the floor as far behind you as you can, across behind you, and tap the floor, out to the side, tap the floor. Okay. Like I say, if these exercises aren't challenging, you don't need to worry about them, you need to move on to a different exercise. We can try that exercise we did before, but with eyes closed. So we should have added this in before. So you can try on a firm surface, but making your support much smaller. You can try on a soft surface, or you can try with your eyes closed. So feet together, eyes closed, and do the same thing. Okay, and work your way through that process. Turning is another issue. If you have a vestibular problem, very often those quick turns are an issue. So just see how you feel after you've done a full turnaround. Okay, and stop. And for most people, the turning's not too big an issue, but it's when you stop, you kind of feel like you maybe keep moving for a second or two. If that's not the case, you don't need to worry about this exercise, but if that is the case, then you need to practice turning. If it's literally just a moment of disorientation when you stop, then you can practice a full 360-degree turn. But if it takes quite a while to recover from that, so you do one turn and several seconds before you feel like you're steady again, then make it sort of half turns or a quarter turn. So just go that way, or go halfway round and halfway round. And when you can do that at a reasonable speed, so to start with, some of you might be being quite cautious with that and moving around at this kind of speed. When you can do that at a reasonable speed, then try and speed it up a little bit more. So instead of just being a walking turn, you bring it into a bit of a jumping turn. Okay, so if you're wanting to get back to ball sports, you're going to need to be able to make these kind of quick changes in directions and lunges, maybe lunging forwards a little bit as well. Okay, but bring in a little bit of speed. But only bring in the speed when you can do normal pace without any symptoms or discomfort or imbalance. So that's turning. The other issue, I mentioned that eyes have got a lot to do with it, so you're using your eyes to keep your balance an awful lot, and when your inner ears aren't working quite as well as they should, very often you rely a lot more on your vision, which is good, it's a way of compensating, but you can also bring in other systems by, I've just realised I've gone off on track. On this exercise, I'm actually looking at your eyes tracking things. So what you may find if you've had a vestibular problem is that actually if you're following a moving object, it might be quite disorienting. So you can use a ball to retrain yourself. So just look at that object and just follow it, make it nice and easy to start with. Okay, and then try throwing and catching. So your eyes are moving up and down, following that ball. You may find the colour of the ball makes a difference. So this yellow tennis ball might actually be more difficult than a dark coloured ball. Okay. If there's somebody else around, then get them to throw and catch with you so that it's less predictable. And then also you have to reach out a little bit more to catch it. If there's nobody with you, then you can either use a wall, so that if you throw it against the wall at different angles, it will come back at you at slightly different angles, still not as good as someone else throwing it to you, or challenge yourself a little bit more, pass it underneath. If you can do that, okay, then bring in a little bit more coordination, a bit more eye tracking, actually throw it up in the air and catch it. So you're having to react a little bit to the ball moving in slightly unpredictable directions. And then also picking up the ball from the floor is a good rehab. Okay? So try and retrain yourself if you're scared of looking at the floor. If you drop the ball on the floor, don't be tempted to just glance at it and then pick it up while still looking. Actually practice looking down at it and picking it up and coming back up. And if you feel unsteady or dizzy doing that, and like I have, just find something you can steady yourself against. Okay? So picking the ball up is as much part of the rehab as throwing and catching it. Let's look at steps. So if you're watching this video, I expect you can do a basic step up and it's not too big a deal. Okay? So I'm imagining people watching this can go up and down stairs now and feel reasonably okay. But let's challenge that a little bit by adding some arms in. Okay, so just on your bottom stair at home, bring some arms in, take the opposite leg out behind you and see if you can still balance, or if you find that you're starting to do this. Okay, and if you can do that okay, then again start combining your eyes and your hands and your head together. So looking up, put a ball in your hand, even better, except I haven't got a ball to hand. Hold something. So hold a book in your hand and look at what you're holding in your hand. It makes it a bit easier to follow than just having empty hands. So looking up. So you've got head movement, you've got eyes tracking, and you're going on to one leg. You'll likely need to stop and rest quite often in between these if you're going a bit dizzy. So I'm not expecting you to go straight from one exercise to the next like I have. I'd expect you, if it was challenging and making you feel a little disoriented, that you would have a rest for a couple of minutes before you do the next, or even do the next one later in the day. Okay? These are not exercises you have to do all in one go. And the last one I want to look at is changes in vertical movement. So there is one part of your inner ear function. We always think of the inner ear for balance as being like little spirit levels that move around as you move your head, which is true. So you have got that going on in your ears, but you've also got another system in your ears that measures acceleration and deceleration and up and down movement. So something like jelly on a plate. So when you're moving, it's all moving the same. But then when you stop, the jelly does this. Okay? And you've got little sensors in your inner ear that pick up when that jelly moves on the plate and can tell when you've suddenly stopped or when you've changed speed. Likewise, when you go up and down quickly, so it squashes and stretches like that. And again, you can sense when you're changing direction up and down. So if the little hairs in that system that sense the movement are not functioning as well, or the nerves from that system aren't functioning as well, you may have difficulty when you stop suddenly or when you move up and down quickly. So you can practice, you can test out the acceleration, deceleration by looking at whether you can stop quickly. So walk briskly and then stop. Okay? Now you probably need a little bit more distance, but I didn't want to crash into the camera. So do several steps and then stop, and see if you can stop immediately, or whether when you stop you do this a little bit until your body kind of gets adjusted. If you're finding that that is happening, it's taking a few seconds for you to steady yourself after a sudden stop, then just keep practicing it. Within a week or a fortnight, you'll be better at it. Okay? And the other one is the up and down. So if you're not sure how you're going to be at this, if you suspect that it's going to be an issue, start with just going up and down on tiptoes a few times, quite fast, and then stop and see how you feel when you stop. And if you feel absolutely fine, then make a little bit of a jump. And if that feels fine, do a few in a row. And then again, see how you feel when you stop. And you might find you're not too bad when you're jumping, but when you stop, it feels like you're still jumping. Okay. So if that's a challenge, then have a little go at that. But, just start with maybe 3 or 4 jumps and let it steady, and then over time do a few more. When you reach a point where you can do that and it feels fine, make it bigger. Okay, and then if you're wanting to get back to netball or something like that, or badminton, then you need to bring in jumps with a little bit of arm movement as well. So, stretching up in different directions and maybe even going up on one leg, and just vary it around. So think about what you want to go back to and see if you can kind of make the exercise relevant to what you're aiming to get back to. Okay, so I think we've covered just about all different aspects of balance there. One leg, eyes closed, unsupported surface, turning, tracking things with your eyes. So hopefully we've covered pretty much everything there. So like I say, have a try at it all and practice the things that are challenging, and good luck.